Hi everyone, Traveling Wolf here today with my very first video. I talk about all things tech, cinema, and gaming. And today I'm going to share with you my standard Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray collection. So first up, we have Batman, the complete animated series. As of the recording of this video today, we sadly discovered that Kevin Conroy has passed away. But this series will endure for a lifetime, and the legacy that Kevin Conroy brought to the character is unparalleled. Next up, we have Little Miss Sunshine with Paul Dano. I'm a huge Paul Dano fan and have greatly enjoyed his work over the years, even prior to the Batman. I greatly enjoy this film as it features a dysfunctional family that embarks on a cross-country trip to attend a beauty pageant. It's very interesting to see all the things that they get mixed up in along the way, and it's very entertaining and funny and heartfelt. I definitely recommend this film. Next up, we have Ruby Sparks, also featuring Paul Dano, alongside his real-life girlfriend Zoe Kazan. I greatly enjoy this film as I feel that the real-life chemistry between Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan really lends itself to the film. It's a very romantic, heartfelt, and at times sad film, but nonetheless an enjoyable watch, and I highly recommend it. Next up, we have Love and Mercy with Paul Dano. And I have yet to have seen this film, but I am a huge Beach Boys fan and of course Paul Dano fan, and look forward to seeing it someday soon once I get through the rest of my backlog. Next up is Swiss Army Man with Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. And I greatly enjoyed this film for its absurdity. It may be a hard watch for some with its unique premise, but it is definitely a worthwhile watch in my opinion. So definitely do so if you haven't. Next up is The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise fan, however, I do greatly enjoy samurai and the historical setting in this film. It's very action-packed, and the performances are top-notch, so I highly recommend this film. Next up is another Tom Cruise film, Rain Man, with the phenomenal Dustin Hoffman. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I greatly enjoy seeing the relationship between Tom Cruise's character and Dustin Hoffman's character evolve. And it's a heartwarming story and somewhat sad by the end, but still a phenomenal film and a very heartwarming film. Next up is Juno with Ellen Page, well now Elliot Page and Michael Cera. I don't have much to say about this film. I do enjoy it, however, I don't think it's as funny as others might think. Next up is Manchester by the Sea, led by Casey Affleck. I greatly enjoyed this film, however I question whether or not Casey Affleck truly deserved the Oscar for this role, as I don't think his performance was anything noteworthy, but nonetheless a great watch. Next up is Dodgeball with Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. Countless people have seen this film, but it's an entertaining watch and it's always something that you could come back to, and in my opinion is Ben Stiller's funniest role. Next up is Jobs, starring Ashton Kutcher. This is rather a by-the-numbers biopic, but I found it nonetheless entertaining as I'm a big fan of Apple and Steve Jobs, so it's a worthwhile watch in my opinion. Next up is Batman vs. Robin, a very entertaining DC animated movie with surprising amounts of blood and gore. So action-packed with thrills and chills, and I highly recommend it for any DC fans. Next up is my 4K Blu-ray collection, and we're going to start off with The Northman. One of my favorite films of this year. I was very glad and fortunate to have seen this in the cinema. I greatly enjoyed Alexander Skarsgård's performance, the Norse setting, and although the trailers might lead you to believe that it's more action-packed than it actually is, I still found it very entertaining, so definitely watch despite the slow burn. Next up is The Batman, by far my favorite film of this year. I greatly enjoyed Robert Pattinson's performance and truly believe he is the best Batman thus far in live action. I also loved cinematographer Greg Fraser and director Matt Reeves, and truly believe it is an Oscar contender and worthy of Best Picture. Next up is Watchmen Ultimate Cut. This contains the director's cut interspliced with Tales of the Black Freighter, so you get the complete experience. Zack Snyder gets a lot of flack for his work, including this, but I truly believe he delivered one of the best comic book adaptations of all time, and this is a worthwhile watch for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Next up is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I have yet to see this film, but I've heard great things about it and look forward to seeing it someday soon. Next up is Logan, by far my favorite X-Men film. We finally got a fully realized hard R interpretation of Wolverine with copious amounts of blood and gore and an entertaining watch. Next up is Dune, a great sci-fi film, and also with cinematographer Greg Fraser at the helm. I love his use of lighting, both artificial and natural, and this is a great film for any Dolby Vision lovers, so definitely watch. Next up is Across the Universe, with Jim Sturgis and Evan Rachel Wood. This is a musical based around the Beatles, and I love how they utilize their songs to tell a unique story, and the visuals are breathtaking even to this day, and the color palette is rich and very enticing. I highly recommend this film, even if you're not a fan of musicals. Next up is 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. I greatly enjoyed this film, although it was quite hard for me to wrap my head around it the first time around, but I came to appreciate it much more after my second viewing, so definitely watch. Next up is A Clockwork Orange, also directed by Stanley Kubrick. This is by far my favorite Kubrick film, and although it may be an uncomfortable watch for some, I believe it is a necessary one for any film lovers, so definitely watch. Next up is The Revenant. I don't have much to say about this film as I'm not the biggest Leonardo DiCaprio fan, although I did enjoy the historical setting as well as Tom Hardy's performance. Next up is Blade Runner 2049, an exceptional sci-fi film with Ryan Gosling's performance and a breathtaking neon color palette. This is a must-watch for any HDR lovers. Next up is Spider-Man Far From Home. I was quite surprised by this movie as it played out more like a comedy than anything else. I got plenty of laughs out of it, and thought it was a rather by-the-numbers superhero movie. It's entertaining, although nothing noteworthy. Next up is Spider-Man Homecoming. Same can be said for this movie. It's a Spider-Man movie. You know what to expect. Next up, we have a special edition A24 slipcover of Lamb. I have yet to have seen this film, but I hear it has a rather horrifying premise of this lamb that can walk upright and seemingly talk, which somewhat frightens me, but maybe someday I'll muster up the courage to finally watch this and see what it's really about. Lastly, we have a special edition 4K box set of Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I love the neo-noir atmosphere, and the soundtrack is exceptional. The history behind this film is rather interesting, as it was sitting on the shelf for the longest time, and was originally going to be a Fast and Furious ripoff. But Refn finally came in and completely transformed it into this art house neo-noir crime thriller, and this is a necessary watch for any film lovers, and I highly recommend it. Well, that concludes my complete Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray collection. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.